Hi, everyone. My name is Pianpian. I'm the founder and CEO of Amotions. Emotions is a platform to help you to increase your effectiveness and improve your relationship and leadership skills. We're very happy today to have Naya here. Naya is a certified coach, and she also has a psychology degree from Yale as well as a master's degree. Naya, how are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. What a joy.
Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we would like to learn a little bit about what kind of coaching you do and if you have any suggestions in several topics that we're thinking about. Why don't we start with what kind of coaching are you passionate about?
Yeah, so I know that coaching is a hot buzzword that's, around in the leadership development space and has been around for a really long time. Um, we have fitness coaches, we have nutrition coaches, we have career coaches, and it could get really overwhelming. And we also have athletic coaches.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, I like to start by kind of explaining coaching, what it is and how it's different from maybe therapy and consulting, because I think that those two kind of get a little bit confused. But coaching is really a partnership. You go to a therapist when there are things that may have happened in your past that you want to spend time unpacking to really understand why it happened, really dig into the emotions of why it happened, so that you can cope better in the present and think about different strategies so that if that thing that triggered you emotionally or mentally comes up again, you're prepared. Coaching, on the other hand, really has this future facing lens. And so for me, I'm a leadership and career coach. So when I'm thinking about the future with my clients, it's like, okay, well, where do you want to go in your career? How do you want to best position yourself? What does leadership really mean for you? How are you showing up as a leader now? And how do you want to be showing up as a leader in the future? So that's the main distinction between like coaching and therapy. And then when we think about coaching and consulting, usually you hire a consultant when you have a big problem that you can't solve on your own, right? So you get an expert so that they can come in and tell you what to do. Coaching, again, is about a partnership, and recognizing that the client is the one who is the master or the expert in their own lived experiences. And through that partnership of working with a coach, you got to kind of dig out that expertise, they dig out that wisdom that they already have to get the answers for getting to that future state that we described. So it's really about partnership. It's really about accountability. It's really about that action planning to get to that future state. And I know that was a lot longer than what you asked for. You just like, what kind of coach are you? And I'm like, here's the whole thing. Because you know what, there are lots of coaches out there, and I think it's important for people to just learn a little bit more about, some of those distinctions. Because when I learned it, I was just like, I didn't know all these things. So just sharing the wisdom.
That's helpful. Yeah, thank you. And based on what we chatted before, that you're very kind of passionate about energy management, and you're also passionate about helping purpose-driven leaders and people who want to make an impact in the world. I mean, there's a lot of talk about burnout these days. What kind of suggestions do you have for these people if you're incorporating the coaching angle in this context?
Yeah, there's a lot to dig into around burnout, around energy management. Well, first thing is, like, I don't think enough people talk about and think about energy management, right? We kind of focus on time management, but rarely do we stop and say, well, how am I feeling like in my body throughout the day? Like, what do I need? Am I hungry? Do I need to run to the bathroom? Do I need to stretch? Right? Learning what those cues are, bringing awareness to what those cues are really helps us to combat burnout before it even happens. And we only learn through that awareness. So, some people get headaches when they have too much on their plate. They get, these feelings in their stomach. They get backaches. How are we responding to those natural signals that are showing up for us, and either being proactive or being really intentional about taking those moments to pause to take care of ourselves? So, often people think about burnout as just like, you go, 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 and then boom, it's done. And then you don't even realize you're burnt out until you're resting. So for me, and the work that I do with my clients, it's really about how are you nourishing yourself in those micro moments throughout the day? How are you really using your evenings? How are you really using your weekends? How are you, pre-planning longer breaks so that you're constantly thinking about those things that nourish you, not only the basic needs for your body, like food, sleep, but also taking time to read, taking time to spend time with friends. Like those things also help to energize us and refuel us. So A, it's awareness. B, it's thinking about, okay, well, what are the things that I really need to help me stay at my optimal energy levels? And then C, it's like, well, how am I intentionally building that into my life so that I'm constantly refilling my cup and not pouring from an empty cup? And I think the last thing is just really owning our boundaries. Energy management, well-being comes down to um, giving ourselves permission to say no, right? No to emails on the weekends, if that's a thing, right? No to being connected on your vacation. No to that extra project because the quality of your work as a whole will diminish because you've taken on this other thing. So really owning that, the quality of your work, the quality of your life experiences comes down to thinking about that balance and enacting that balance that will really support you on a day-to-day and longer term. It's just a more sustainable option. And I know that, people are probably listening and just like, oh man, but I just can't, I have to just keep on going, right? Because so many of us have been kind of groomed to and shaped to keep on chugging along until we reach that moment of burnout. And those cycles of just like forcing burnout, and then the recovery time from burnout, and then like going back again. It's time for us to break the loop. Companies are really thinking about this differently. We've seen what's happened with the Great Resignation. So it's time for us to also give ourselves permission to change the way that we work as well as our organizations shift, and really start to prioritize energy management and self-care because it is a more sustainable option for their employees. Like America is a little bit behind when you look at other countries in Europe, right, who, are really thoughtful about, 4-day work weeks or, longer parental leaves. These sorts of things that are so important for us to adapt into American culture as well. Not only for the well-being of businesses, but for the well-being of humans who come to work. And the pandemic has shown us that like people really drive businesses. So it's so important for us to take care of our people.
That's right. Yeah. I think it's all very good points in terms of kind of being attentive to the signals that we get from our body and putting time to recharge and not just keep going and working and not taking any break. What other suggestions do you have for leaders who might not be just instantly change their work week to be 4 days or change the kind of big policy change, but like small things they can do to help their team members throughout the day or throughout the week?
I think particularly leaders, and I've found this in companies that I've worked for, just like hearing my manager say, hey, I'm going on a long weekend and I'm disconnecting. Just hearing people who are more senior than me say that just then gives me permission to say like, hey, you know what? Like I'm trusted to get my work done. I'm trusted to do well. And I'm also trusted to rest and know what my needs are. So being more open about what your self-care patterns are and what your self-care routines are automatically just creates a space for other people to start to choose them as well. So, it's really a top-down approach, I think, right? Of the culture shifting by people being more open about these things that are happening in our lives. And our lives, like what we saw when folks started to work from home, is that our lives and our work are now intermingling in ways that we have to grapple with and really consider how this can be more supportive rather than a detractor in either fronts, like our personal lives, but then also in our professional lives as well.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. And then another topic that kind of we have a lot of people who are thinking about is diversity and inclusion in the workplace and how to create an environment for everyone to feel like they belong and they're included. And also when they're recruiting and finding talents, they keep that in mind as well. What are your thoughts in these areas?
I think we can all think of a time, like even back in school, maybe the dodgeball team or, applying to college where we've been excluded or felt left out. It's so important for us to think about how am I intentionally not creating situations at work where people feel like that feeling, right? Or have experienced that. So inclusion, like I'm focusing on inclusion because that's where we each have personal responsibility in the way that we show up. Diversity is a broader thing, right? It comes into the recruiting practices and comes into, how companies are thinking on an organizational basis about retention. But each of us have a responsibility to play in creating a work environment that's inclusive based on the way that we show up, the way that we engage with each other, the way that we're really thinking about being supportive. And each individual just wants three things, and that's to be valued, to be supported, and to be respected. Valued for the contributions that they bring to the table, respected for who they are, all of who they are, and supported in the goals that they want for the future. So when we think of inclusion, it really boils down to those three things. How are we showing up in ways where I'm valuing, my colleagues, respecting my colleagues, supporting my colleagues? What do I need to be valued, respected, and supported? And how's the organization as a whole really sharing in that responsibility to create spaces where everyone is experiencing those three things too?
Mm-hmm. That's a really kind of good summary in terms of having someone feel valued and respected and recognized in an organization. Do you have some specific examples of how an interaction could be felt that way by everyone when they're valued and respected versus not?
I think it's simple things, right? Like pronouncing someone's name correctly,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remembering that someone has a kid or a partner asking, or they went on vacation, asking them how it went, being willing to share those things too. Just remembering things about people,
Mm-hmm.
asking people what their goals are, how you can support them. Those are the things. Those are the small ways that we can begin to start to shape and redefine a culture that is inclusive. And it also ties back into that energy management piece, right? Because it's all interconnected. It's like, how are people who show up at work showing up more human?
Right.
And how are we creating that space for those human connections? And with that, deeper relationships form and evolve. You have more trusted relationships. You have more open feedback when it comes time for new ideas to be put forward. You have new ways of looking at problems. People feel more open to share. And, often businesses will talk about, teams that are more diverse and more inclusive have better business results. You can't drive better business results without having those trusted relationships, right? Because then again, we're not creating the space for people to really show up and feel like they can share their different perspectives,
Right.
and offer the insights that they have that are really valuable for their teams. So
Yeah. So yeah, I think kind of keeping those in mind when you're interacting with someone and keeping their background and interests in mind, as well as thinking about, okay, gathering the opinions from different people. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Naya. This is really helpful. I think we'll continue our conversation another time, but this is very helpful insights. And thank you on behalf of our audience as well.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.